All right, friends, it's 2 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and jump right in. So it's my great pleasure to welcome you to this special session about the macro consortium here at the AAS meeting. Let me just give you a brief overview of what the session is going to look like today. We're going to have 7 speakers, each of whom will talk for approximately 10 minutes. We envision a model where individuals that are interested can ask questions as the speakers finish their talks. And they will also have an open plus or minus 15, 20 minutes of time at the end for open dialogue. Let me remind everyone of the American Astronomical Society's Code of Conduct. This is a welcoming and collegial environment, so all the questions, as long as they're easy to answer, are welcome. And so we hope that you find this session to be stimulating and fruitful. So, like I said, this is a great honor for me to kick this session off. Staggeringly, I realized today that I've been coming to AAS meetings for 23 years. And I can honestly say that looking back over those 23 years, this is the endeavor about which I am most proud to talk. It really has been a transformational and career highlight for me. And I'm surrounded by wonderful people, the colleagues who have helped to make this happen. Together, I think we've really built something very special. So I'm very eager to share this with you. So my name is John Cannon. I'm a professor of astronomy at McAllister College. I'm currently the director, in as much as the title means anything, of the Macro Consortium. And we'll jump right in to a highline overview of what macro is. The McAllister Augustana Co-Remote Observatory is an educational and research collaboration amongst 5 institutions that prioritizes undergraduate research. We feel that the undergraduate astronomy curriculum can be strengthened enormously by robotically operating a telescope at a marquee observing site. Our telescope, a half-meter plane wave telescope that I'll tell you about in a moment, is located at the Weiner Observatory in southern Arizona. It's about an hour and 15 minutes southeast of Tucson at an elevation of about 5,000 feet. To give you a sense of where Weiner lies with respect to our institutions, this short video will start with the flyover of us in Madison with the white dot, and our home institutions, the northernmost in Minnesota, the southernmost in Galesburg, where Knox is. And we can see Weiner off in the distance. So let's shift over these hundreds of miles to Weiner, and you'll see here drone footage of the rollback roof that moves off and exposes the 8 different telescope piers inside this shared observing site. Weiner is located at elevation about 5,000 feet in the Sonoyta Valley. And as you can see, the population density is quite low. So the sky brightness is fair, and we get 2.5, 3 arc-second seeing typically. And we have the opportunity to do long-term projects with our students. Our telescope is located in pad number 1, the southeastmost, that's the bottom right-hand corner here, and it's the one closest to the southern part of the structure and with the least obstructed view of the sky. What is the RLMT? The Robert L. Mutel telescope is a half-meter CDK-20 plane wave system. We have this mounted on an MI-750 Mathis mount, and we have 2 filter wheels. And these filter wheels give us complete coverage of the Sloan filter set, including the DE-CAM Y prime filter. We have broadband color filters. We have narrowband filters. And then we also have 2 in-filter wheel slitless GRISM systems that we're going to hear a lot about from our colleagues here momentarily. An image of the RLMT with our old back end, we've actually replaced the camera and introduced a second filter wheel compared to this image that you see here. So how did macro come to be? What is the genesis of this collaboration? Well, the founder of the feast, if you will, is Professor Robert Mutel. There's an image of him here at the upper right. And for more than 25 years, Robert really was a visionary, was out in front of the community in thinking about how to use this fledgling World Wide Web to control telescopes that are hundreds of thousands of miles away. And he really, with the 3 generations of telescopes at University of Iowa, really blazed the trail, was a pioneer in this field. And so this more than 20 years of contiguous developments really put them out in front, if you will, of the community. A couple of historical photos here on the left is the very first generation University of Iowa robotic telescope when it's still on campus. Professor Mutel is in the foreground at lower right. And a couple months later, we had taken that telescope down to Arizona, the same telescope sitting on Pier 1, where I just showed you in drone footage. And if you have keen eyes, you'll be able to see a couple of very young looking versions of a few people in the room. We happen to be in the right place at the right time, but we were part of the beginning of this. And it really left a lasting mark on myself and Bill and all the others who have been involved with this over the years, such that when Professor Mutel decided to take emeritus status, we thought, what better way to carry on this legacy than to take over stewardship of the facility that he had left behind. And this was the genesis of the Macro Consortium. I want to draw attention to the fact that it wasn't just me and Bill. Actually, James Wetzel here in the audience was the first one to bridge the idea. And James was also a former student of Robert's at the University of Iowa. And so it really was, or is a tribute in many ways to Robert and the impact that he had on each of our careers. So what is macro enabled? This is, it's rare, I think, in astronomy that we get to talk about quantum leaps. This is a quantum leap. This is taking the capabilities for modest aperture observatories located in crowded and overpopulated areas where people love to have their lights on. We can do so much better with this telescope in Arizona than what we can do on campus. And it's really amazing the improvements in imaging sensitivity, in the breadth of types of science we can do. But perhaps most importantly, this telescope allows our students to design projects from the bottom up. From inception to designing of the observations, executing, getting the data and working with them and interpreting them. We really get to see the scientific process in all of its components. So how do our students interact with it? Well, most importantly, the students have guaranteed access to the telescope, right? And that means that student projects will always be able to rely upon the acquisition of the data that is needed for time studies, for deep studies, whatever it might be. Now, perhaps most critically for the student perspective, right? Undergrad students are busy. They're doing a lot of things, right? And they're already up till all hours of the night. But the last thing that they need is to be staying up all night running on-campus observatory. So imagine a model where those students can write their observing scripts, they go to bed, they get sleep, and they stay, well hydrated and all these different kinds of things that we hope that they're doing. And the telescope is running while this is happening, right? So this is the major step forward for us. And then when we need to or we want to, for pedagogical purposes, we can go back and use this in a hands-on way to simulate the use of the telescope. So again, most critically, the students are designing these projects from the ground up. How has macro been made possible? Well, the institutional buy-in, if you will, the way that the consortium actually had to be organized was, we have to spend a little bit of money, right? And so we had to have conversations with administrators saying, we don't want to buy a new telescope. We don't want to spend, some very large number of dollars. We want to spend fewer because we want to be some part of something that is made bigger by bringing all these institutions together. So formally, the University of Iowa still owns this equipment, but they've loaned it to our consortium in perpetuity so long as we continue to use it for the intended reasons. And then these member institutions contribute a modest amount of money compared to the reward that we get to see the system continue to move forward. It's important to note that right now, donor support from our college communities is critically important. Everyone that you see in this photo is in the room, except for one individual. The fourth from right is Dr. David Fowler, a McAllister alum, who's been a great supporter of our endeavors and actually a user of our telescope. When you get down to brass tacks, how do we operate? We use an operating model that's legal, right? We have to go through all the lawyers and all this kind of stuff. But the operating agreement binds us together. McAllister acts as what's called the fiscal agent, so they're the financial pass-through, if you will, and this allows us to do something very important. This allows us to claim tax-exempt status, so when we're buying equipment, things like this, we can do this in a way. And then those folks who are here in the room will act as the so-called board of directors, and we think about directions and projects and so on and so forth. How do we actually schedule the telescope? We do this in what we hope is a clever way, where we have institutional priority system that rolls through the calendar. And this more equitably distributes susceptibility to weather and other issues that we might face. Lunar illumination, for example, we equitably distribute this across the institutions. It allows us, when needed, to plan ahead. But then, of course, it's just a priority system. And in the end, we're a consortium. And if someone needs data, they can always get it in one way or another. So it's very rare, almost unheard of, that we have a night where someone might say, hey, I need images tonight, and we can't deliver those images to those people. And so that's a great strength of our collaboration. We feel like we've had a wonderful first 18 months of operation. We've been together now since the 1st of January 2023. And we feel like we've done a lot of great things. And I'm really excited for all of you to see these great things today. But we don't want to just sit back now. We want to keep making our instrument better. So a couple of things we're thinking about, we're in the process of commissioning an integral field spectrometer, which is very, very rare to have on a small aperture telescope like this. And Philip Griffin's going to tell us a little bit more about this later. My colleague Bill will tell us about the high resolution GRISM spectrometer that we're in the final stages of commissioning. And we're very excited to launch our first summer research program in 2024. We take data from the RLMT and we combine it, in this case, with VLA imaging of a very exotic and super strange object called STLMI that Cameron Kosky, who's here in the audience, is giving a poster in session 228 later today about. So finally, how can I learn more? Most importantly, stay seated, because there's a lot more good stuff coming. So don't go anywhere. There's a lot more wonderful things my colleagues will tell you about. Later on today, in the poster session, we have 20 posters by students leading student-led projects. And if I can, everybody who's giving a poster, can you all just stand up for me? All these people know the system. All these people have done a lot of really great hard work, and they'd be happy to chat with you, as would any of us, about the wonderful things that macro can do for you and the things that we've done already. So with that, I will pause and ask if there might be questions